right, Mike Detillier, WWL Radio, TV New Orleans, NFL, LSU Saints insider. He joins us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. Oh, man. And this SEC Insider hit is brought to you by the super cool video walls and sound systems powered by Sound and Communications and soundcomav.com. Football field, lobby, conference room, baseball field, powered by Sound and Communications. Call them today for your next video wall or sound system for your business or athletic facility. They've done SEC, G5, high schools, JUCO, you name it. Powered by soundcomav.com. Mike D, good morning. Welcome in. How was Fat Tuesday?
Yeah, it was great. Man, I enjoy it. It's kind of a 2-week thing, and I ride in a couple of different parades. So it's great to meet people along the parade route. Kids, man, who's their first Mardi Gras that they can sort of remember. And so, yeah, it's a great ride. Really have a good time.
All right. What was the most energetic? You may pick another one, but I'm going to throw out two to you. All right. So what was the most energetic Mardi Gras that you took part in? Was it the exuberance and emotional feelings of coming back from Katrina, or was it after the Saints won the Super Bowl, Mike D?
I would say Saints winning Super Bowl.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Because, I think after Katrina, people were still hurting. That was a lot of rebuilding to be done. And it just depended on where you lived at, in Louisiana. That's the other part. I live a little south and west of the city of New Orleans. We didn't get, nearly the devastation that the city did. Well, we didn't get a lot of that. We got a lot of it for Ida a couple of years back because, we got basically a direct hit. But, Saints Super Bowl was special because for a lot of people, they didn't think it would happen. And for older, people of a certain age who had been through a lot of the more difficult times with this team, that you figure they started up in 1967. They didn't have a winning season until 1986.
Incredible.
That's a good stretch. So I would say after the Super Bowl, it was a great time, great ride, and it was a lot of fun.
Mike Detillier on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. Hey, Mike, I ask you this every now and then, and I love hearing it because I'm in the business, and I'm always intrigued and interested as to what other people are doing. You and Bobby Hebert's show. Break it down is it 90% Saints, 10% LSU, or maybe some other things? I know you got to hit Pelicans and so on. But how would you break it down percentage-wise as far as kind of the topics that y'all cover on WWL, Mike D?
I would say probably it's 60% Saints,
okay,
30% LSU. If it's football, basketball, and baseball, it's huge here. I have a neighbor, and he says there's only 2 seasons in the year: LSU football season, LSU baseball season. That's it. Man, he could. He hopes the Saints win, but it doesn't affect his week if they don't. But man, football and baseball. And probably the other 10% would probably be more Pelicans. Now, that picks up a little bit more as the NFL season ends. And it probably expands to maybe 20, 25%. depending on how they're playing. But I would say it's 60% Saints.
Okay.
And probably 30% LSU, and then 10% Pelicans.
In the first hour, we were doing some SEC coaching rankings, and I mentioned how I expect LSU to be better this year, and I got some pushback because some of our listeners were like, they're losing a Heisman Trophy winner in Jaden Daniels. I'm like, hey, I recognize that he was really good, but I think they'll be 100 times better on defense and still good on offense because LSU trips over athletes on offense. How do you see it, Mike? Do you expect a pretty big step forward in Brian Kelly's year 3 down in Baton Rouge?
It has been the year he has talked about making the push. And so could they be any worse on defense than they were last year? I mean, it was horrendous to watch this defense play game in, game out. And if you were just hoping to get a couple stops, because you knew Daniels was going to put up points. But, man, the schedule is daunting because you open up against USC on the road, and you got UCLA later in the month. Now, that sort of changed now because of Chip Kelly not being there. But you open up the season against, this is 3 straight for Brian, twice against Florida State, now USC. And then you finish it up. You do have Alabama at home and also Ole Miss, but you play Oklahoma too. So that schedule, man, if you're an LSU fan, I don't know if you've ever seen a schedule this inviting at home, a home schedule. I think they have to be better on defense. Just have to. But they're awfully thin along the defensive line, talent-wise and depth-wise. Offensively, you can't be better than what you were a year ago. There's no way. It's just not going to happen. When you lose Jaden and 2 first-round pick wide receivers. But I think you'll be good there. But it'll be a different look offensively because I think they're going to have to rely a little bit more on the running game. And with Caleb at running back, I think he's the next superstar on that LSU team at running back. So I think they'll be a good team offensively. They won't be this explosive team that you saw a year ago that was putting up 40 points on a regular basis. And I think they'll be better on the defensive side of football. But a tougher schedule. That Ole Miss team's going to be difficult, man. I keep telling people this. It's the first time, maybe Eli's senior season. Because we gather around, do it for a couple of different magazines, and we kind of kick around teams that we're looking at. Other than that year, I don't remember another time, basically across the board, everybody has talked about Ole Miss maybe being a top 5 or 6 team.
It's been a long time. That's for sure. LSU gets a week off before Ole Miss.
Yep.
Boy, I think that's a gift for LSU, and I have LSU as a slight favorite, in that game. But you're right. Ole Miss is dangerous, and they're gearing up for what they believe is going to be a huge year. Mike Detillier on the Out of Bounds show and the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. So is this first of all, for our listeners, Mike D referenced that Southern Cal game. It's in Las Vegas.
Yep.
I think LSU
road
could.
Trip.
Yeah, that's an awesome road trip for Labor Day weekend. I think LSU could impose their will in the second half of that game, and I think they absolutely blow out UCLA in Game 4 just because Chip had not recruited well. They haven't raised money in NIL, and their assistant coach, who they hired, is walking into a train wreck. Okay, So let's move to the NFL draft. As you're looking at the first round and everybody's talking about let's talk about the first couple of rounds. Outside of the quarterback position, Mike, what is the position that you look at and you're like, okay, 2024, this position is loaded going into Detroit, which is where the NFL draft will be?
Offensive tackles and wide receivers. Last year we talked about it. It was the best year I'd ever done. This 37 years for me. The best year I had ever done with tight ends. And they proved it. I mean, you saw them. They came out the woodwork. And this year, I think offensive tackles, where you could see 7, maybe 8 going round 1. Wide receivers, you think about it, Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, Rome Medusa, Brian Thomas Jr. From LSU, Keon Coleman, Florida State, Troy Franklin from Oregon. That's 6. But there's probably 6 to 7 additional guys that are second-round pick grades for me. So it's definitely offensive tackle and wide receivers.
Okay. Offensive tackle, wide receivers. We're about to go through the period where we absolutely try to poke holes in everybody, but definitely these quarterbacks. Who do you think's going to take the brunt of the, because all these guys are talented. You don't ever know. So much of it is, do they have their act together in the front office? Do they have a good head coach? Do they have the right culture? You've seen it all covering the Saints, good and bad, and everywhere else. Who do you think is going to take the brunt of the media questioning whether he can play or not as far as some of the top QBs, Mike?
I think Drake May. I think it's a consensus Caleb Williams will be the first pick in the draft. It's sort of a split league-wise on the 2 spot. I think it's Jaden Daniels from LSU. Some people have Drake May. But I think as you watch a little bit more of Drake, and it's not so much his physical skills as sometimes he is very erratic throwing the football. He's a bit of a groove type passer. When he gets hot, I mean, he can rip you apart. But there are other times he cools off in quite a stretch. So I think he will get a lot of that, of the consistency part. Penix Jr., I think the big question mark for Mike is going to be the medicals with having both knees operated on. What happened with Bo Nix? I get more calls or texts from scouting friends of mine who double check of which one's the real guy, the one from Auburn or the one at Oregon, and what sort of happened, in between for the transformation. J.J. McCarthy is a guy that I think may be the hottest name, in that Harbaugh asked him to do certain things, and he did it very well. He's been a winner no matter where he's played. I think he's a better prospect than most, to be honest with you. I'm watching him. He's got a nice, smooth, over-the-top delivery. The ball comes out of there quick. He's got good decision-making, processing, and you can tell he's more mobile than you would give him credit for, because he can move around pretty well in the pocket. So everybody's got some flaws in their game. A lot of people are worried about, with Jaden, can he hold up physically? Well, you stand up next to him, because him and I, we had a conversation at Manning. I had talked to him quite a bit in the spring, and then I meet up with him at Manning. I saw he had probably put on, I would say 10 pounds, maybe 12. And, I just joked with him that, man, you look like you're a little bit bigger, a little thicker than the last time I saw you. And he's like, you too, coach. So I said, "Heck, I didn't need you to tell me, but I appreciate it." And and for him, because he's sort of a mild-mannered guy, so it was a great line. And but he's real thin. I mean, he is really, really thin as a base. When you look at him, he's a thin base guy. But man, can he run? Good gracious! And TV doesn't do him justice on how fast he is, because if you're there and you see guys with an angle on him and he outruns the angle, I haven't seen a lot of guys like that. Man, can he run? But he's better learn that he's got to slide, because in the NFL, once you leave that pocket, they can take your head off. They protect you in the pocket, and they sort of protect you if you're going to slide. But if you're out in open field, man, you open game. He is one tough son of a gun, too. Bo, I'm going to be honest with you. He is a tough guy out there, and he has taken some nasty shots. With Caleb, it's which one, okay, because the Caleb of 2 years ago, he was a dominating quarterback. This year, I think he tried to do too much. I think he tried to carry that team.
I agree.
And he put too much on his shoulders. That defense was God-right awful. That was a defense worse than LSU's. It was USC's. I mean, every week he was having to score 45 or more points to win a game. And so I think he felt the pressure of that and tried to do too much. But it is a quarterback-driven league. And I think the big question mark is going to be, we know who's going to be 1, 2, 3, in whatever order you want to look at it. If it's Caleb, Jaden, or May and Daniels, those three go. Who becomes the 4 guy? I think it's J.J. McCarthy from Michigan. Then the question is, if you're an NFL team, how does Justin Fields come into play here?
Yes.
Because now I don't have to give up a first-round pick for Justin. I can give up a second and probably kick something else in, but I got to pay him. So if I'm the Bears, I reset the money clock. I pick Caleb Williams from USC. I trade Justin, get a couple picks for him. But whoever gets him, they're going to have to pay him. And so while you don't have to give up a first-round pick for him, you're going to have to shell out pretty good money for Justin Fields. So, and then what happens with Penix and Nix at that point in time? I think it's going to be – it wouldn't surprise me to see 6 first-round pick quarterbacks. It would not surprise me.
Hey, watch out for my guy. Spencer Rattler may creep in. He's underrated and had a terrible offensive coordinator his whole at South Carolina.
I think Spencer's probably more the second-round pick guy, but I get where you're coming from. I'd like to see a little bit more consistency with him as a passer. He was the guy. I mean, people sometimes forget. He was the guy before Caleb. He was the top quarterback in the country. And goes to OU and lights it up, and then maybe not so much that second season, then Caleb takes over, and he goes to South Carolina. You saw a lot of erratic play from Spencer. Boy, when he was good, he was really good. But when he was off as a passer. So I think he did himself well going to Mobile at the Senior Bowl, had a good week of practice, played well in the game. Man, he can spin the rock. I mean, he can throw it. And he's got quick processing skills. You can see it with him. And he's moves well in the pocket. Now, he's thin also. He's got a thin base to him. So you're going to have to protect him a little bit. But he is better at getting out of bounds or to slide than what Jaden is, to be honest. Almost like Jaden, everybody wants to compare Jaden to Joe Burrow. You can't. They're two totally different style quarterbacks.
No, yes.
But here's the one thing they both have in common. Joe refused to slide, and so did Jaden. Man, I can remember Coach O telling me, man, I'm on Joe's behind every week. Hey, Joe, don't take on guys out into the open field. And he said, Mike, he just would not listen. He felt that extra yard mattered, or that extra 2 yards, and he was going to confront you. And he said, Mike, I just hope that he understands in the NFL he can't do that. With Jaden, he's a different style runner. Joe could run pretty well. He could run like what Daniels can. No, there's not a lot of guys I've seen can run like him. But both of them have that one same trait. They feel as though, man, every inch of ground they're going to try to get. And that in the NFL is sometimes dangerous.
Yes.
For a quarterback. Very much so. We saw it took away years off Cam Newton's career.
No question.
The hits that he took some years off of his career. And you can only take so many. This is a dangerous league. People, they ain't tough like they used to be. You ain't out there on that field.
No doubt.
They protect them as much as they can. But you talk about you take some shots. It sounds like a 4-car collision if you out there on that sidelines and hear it. It's a different world. You ain't Al Bundy, and this ain't Polk High School. You're not playing in your backyard. In the NFL today, those guys, if they get a shot at you, they're going to take it.
We'll leave it there. That was fun. We'll jump into more of the NFL draft because it's going to be awesome going forward with Mike Detillier, WWL Radio, TV New Orleans, NFL Saints, LSU Insider. We will get into some Saints next week or the next and talk to Mike about the who, what, where, and when as far as Loomis and Dennis Allen. I don't get the sense from our listeners that there is a lot of excitement of walking back Dennis Allen. Mike D, thank you so much, buddy. We'll talk next week.
Thanks a lot, Bo. Windy off season.
At Mike Detillier on Twitter. The guys everywhere, radio, TV, and so on. He joined us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. Hey, have y'all tried the ribs from Fleetway Market and the Market Cafe in Gluckstadt? If not, you need to try them this week. Or the Blue Plate. It's delicious. You can eat there. Of course, they have a Market Cafe place to eat, or you can get them to go. So the ribs at Fleetway Market and the Market Cafe in Gluckstadt. They also have ice cold Stella Artois to buy. Budweiser, Busch Light, and one of our favorites too locally, Key City out of Vicksburg. And that Key City, Mississippi Queen is absolutely delicious. Drink local. Good morning. Welcome in. Straight ahead. What are we going to do with Jason?